life and in between, today we're going to have our famous, our one and only Patrick Perez in the hot seat. I mean, we are going to be
Woo!
talking about we're going to be unpacking some serious stuff, things that are going on. So we're actually, this episode is going to be based on like falling stars and unpacking the politics and pain behind Texas school closures. And so, with further ado, I am going to pass it on to Patrick and thank him for his leadership and being the voice.
Be the voice, soy la voz. All right, so nothing gets me fired up more than talking about money, inequity, and the conspiracies, even though I'm not much into conspiracies, but still. So this all came up out of like nowhere, but it has been bubbling and brewing for years and years and years. I guess I'll start with a little story, then I'm going to give a little Q&A to you to see what you might think. So I was a teacher during the pandemic, and I've worked in schools in different capacities for 2 decades, mostly as a keynote speaker, assembly speaker, workshop facilitator. And teachers love their job. 99.99% of the teachers do it because they want to give and they love this. But I didn't know how horribly they're treated. I didn't know that the politics from the very top trickled down. I didn't know a lot of the drama that goes on with funding and schools and all this stuff. So, over the last week, here's what happens for all of you listeners out there. You know what's happening in Texas schools right now. Here in Austin, specifically, 13 schools have been slated for closure. Now, here's the funny part. The metric that they use to close these schools is what we call the STAR test. Yay! The standard Texas, blah, 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 blah. I should have looked that up. But the STAR test, it's the standardized testing. So get this. The STAR test is used as a metric to measure schools and students, are you learning? But does it really work? And that has been the question year after year. And pretty much it doesn't work. It's broke so much so that the state legislator is now doing away with the one and done type of standardized testing. They're getting rid of it, but they're still using that metric to close several schools here. And it's not just Austin, other districts are facing this. And as we go deeper into this, and as I went into the wormhole, the rabbit hole, I began to see there was so much here that stems back to the inequities, to the segregation, to the money, follow the money. And so I'm going to read this real quick. This actually just popped up on my phone, kind of a overview from the Austin American Statesman here in Austin. So, following years of underfunding and a growing budget deficit, the Austin Independent School District has proposed closing 13 schools in 2026 to consolidate resources and address financial constraints. Okay, sounds good. This plan includes redrawing attendance boundaries for 98% of existing campuses and relocating specialized academic programs. So I'm going to leave that there. So that's the view, closures. But now here's the funny part. Why is it that I think 10 out of these 13 schools are the black and brown schools? Why is it that it's the schools with predominantly Hispanic black students? Why is it that the option to close the schools is there instead of investing into the schools, giving them the money for the tutoring, giving them the money for the support, helping instead of chop, chop, chop? And this goes deep, and I'll get off on my hobby horse here, and I'm gonna do a little Q&A with you. But this is the falling star because now there's a bill, I guess, in the Texas legislature to have another test, which would be pretty much three smaller tests at the cost of $50 million for taxpayers. So that's one star test by now it's going to be three small tests. And this is where we're going to take what I would call a 30,000 foot view over this matter. Over the next few weeks, we will get some more speakers who can go to that 20,000 foot view, the 10,000 foot view, the people that are in it, because this has been something that has been so prevalent just out of sight because I've got a 4-year old. I never really cared too much about what was happening with the schools because it didn't affect me. It wasn't in my backyard, but now it is. Literally, our school is in our backyard. We walk our kiddo to school, and now they're about to shut it down for next year. So let me ask you this question for our viewers and for my wonderful host here, Deanna. What would you say is the amount of money that districts receive from the wealthier districts? Actually, no, how do I phrase this? I'm trying to phrase it in a way where it's just okay. Take a guess. How much money does Austin give away to the state each year from our property taxes? Take a guess.
Property tax. Oh wow, that's a really I never really thought about this. So I'm probably gonna get it wrong, but I'm just gonna try. So, I don't know, maybe $400,000, I would say, maybe, and leave the rest within the community, which I think would be the best thing. I mean, obviously it should be. I mean, if you're paying property taxes, it should be going towards your community. And I could see how maybe other communities need funding, maybe 400,000, maybe a million, up to a million. I'm thinking. I don't know. What's the
Oh,
number?
okay, so this is good. So the money should stay in the communities where those taxes are being taken. So there's this thing called recapture, the Robin Hood Fund, which on the surface level makes sense. You have small school districts. Let's think of
Right.
Stockton, Texas, Pecos, Texas. They're not going to have the wealthy trillionaires living in their backyard like we do.
Right.
And so property taxes that if you own a home, this is your money. That money gets funneled up. Some goes to your local districts, and then it gets chopped and redirected up to the state, and then they'd fund it out to other districts. So I'm going to give you one more chance, but let's think in millions. How many
In
millions
millions.
of
Okay,
dollars?
millions. Yeah, because okay, Texas is pretty big and we got a lot of small towns out there. So
Mhm.
I think I was low ballparking it, but I was trying to be fair because
Fair.
I think
Okay.
the money should stay within the community. Okay, I mean maybe 10 to 15 million dollars.
Ooh, we getting
No.
up there. We're getting up there. Okay, so last year, Austin residents, if you live in Austin, get ready. We gave away $700 million in
Oh my
property tax.
gosh.
Yeah. 700 million went to recapture. And this is and we'll have a new segment later for y'all, but this is when I started researching and wanting to learn about this instead of like, well, it's not fair, they're shutting down the school, that's just not right. I wanted to get the facts, the figures, and
Right.
really dig into it. So last year, Austin sent $700 million. Austin ISD sent $700 million of our tax money to recapture, which is then funneled out to other districts, which on the surface is good. What happens though is Austin itself, people are getting priced out. Mostly black and brown families getting priced out. So, because they can't afford to be here, the school numbers start going down, down, down. And that's how they determine how much money goes to schools. So, our schools are pretty much underfunded. Teachers should be making a lot more than they do. And that money is going elsewhere while we're suffering and closing schools to
Mm.
save. They're closing these schools to save $25 million, even though we're sending
Wow.
700 million up the chain, which makes no sense.
Sense. I'm all for helping other communities that are underprivileged. However, if you're talking about closing down schools that should be, I mean, they're going to be teachers without work. I mean, they're
Mhm.
going to be faculty, they're going to be children displaced. Um, that's going to impact. I'm thinking of the overall big
Yep.
impact. So to save, and it really makes no sense you as you mentioned that and that's and let's repeat that again. How much is it
Yeah.
that they want to save by closing these schools?
So they're stating that by closing these campuses, it's going to save them $25 million. And
Okay,
I
so
think,
we're saving. Oh, so,
yeah,
oh, go ahead.
and we had a meeting with our district representatives, and when we go to the campus and everybody's yelling, "How dare you!" This district, and I'm pretty sure so many other districts across the state are already in a deficit. Austin ISD is already in a $13 million deficit. I think Austin itself as a city, we're $30 million deficit. but all that money keeps going up the chain. And this is where, I don't know the conspiracies, and this is where, I think the news stations need to investigate more, which they have. But a lot of sources say that the state, at the state level, they're using those funds to cover their own debts, to cover their own matters instead of going back to the schools like they should.
Right,
Because,
right.
and I love this, Tellerico, the representative who's just been blowing up the airways, he's amazing. But he kind of said it like this. You think about this, the richest country in the history of mankind, the richest state within that country is failing the students, failing communities because we don't have enough money. And this is where I would love to get these other guest speakers because they can talk more about this. But they're saying that the whole school voucher, school choice, that's taking even more money out of the schools. When you give $10,000 to, mi gente, the day workers, the Mexican families who are just barely getting by, you give them $10,000 to give them school choice to go to a nice private school, but that private school costs $20,000. So they're still having to pay another 10 grand. And it's what they would say it's the first time that the wealthy are benefiting off of the welfare of the poor. Because
Wow.
that's the money going up to give the wealthy their welfare. So
Right.
and
Exactly. Well, wow. So I mean, because I know there, and I'm glad you touched on this, and man, there's so much to unpack. For starters, I mean, let's think about this. Ideally, people say, yeah, we're going to be getting a voucher. That's great. For a person that earns a certain income level, that's fantastic. Like you said, you're going to be saving money in the contrary, because you're
Mhm.
already paying more than likely these people that fall into a certain income level are already sending their schools to these private charter
Mhm.
schools. And so by everyone getting a voucher, they're actually now saving money. How appealing is that for the wealthy? However, for a person like you mentioned that's just trying to make that day to day, these, that don't earn that money and they cannot afford it and they are relying on that school to stay open.
Mhm.
Um, they don't have that extra $10,000. So the question lies, so if they don't use the voucher, what happens to that money? I wonder that. And and is that being equitably being distributed? No, it's not. I mean, so if you're questioning, yeah, this is a great program. No, I think it's a great program for the wealthy and the rich,
That's
for those that are
exactly
making
it.
them, yeah, but not for the ones that need it. And so for people that don't really see, I guess, the long run picture, the long term, I think the humanity aspect needs to kick in. Also, we have to see the difficulties of chartering this child to a school that's further away, the extra gas money, the extra time. How do you
Mhm.
get this child to school? Because is public transportation, I mean, it is the bus transportation more than likely they only cover a certain amount of radius, and you have to charter that child yourself, the parents, I'm assuming. I mean, these
Well,
are some,
here's the thing with so the schools would be kind of in the same area, but not walking distance for sure.
right?
But if the voucher program, the charter public schools, a lot of them don't have buses that pick kids up. So how do you sell that to someone who's like, wait, I have to go all the way to the west side for my charter school, or a bus, but it's not going to be, where you were. It's not in that area. So there's a lot of things, but what it is, it's always punching down on the people that are already struggling.
Exactly. And I love that you said that. Another thing that you touched on that I kind of want to I don't want to forget this, because you're kind of famous now. I mean, well, you've always been
Ooh.
famous.
Oh
Yeah,
no. Insta
yeah,
fame.
yeah,
I'm not even insta famous. I'm like, hey, you're that guy. You did
no,
something.
you actually were on CBS Austin, if I'm not
Yeah.
mistaken.
Yeah,
Oh,
that
yeah.
was interesting. I got a call or a text from one of our PTA members just 2 hours prior, like, "Hey, I'm stuck at work. Can you be on the news to talk about the school closure stuff?" I was like, "Oh gosh, sure." So let's do it. And
Well, I am going to share that clip if you don't mind. I'm going to go ahead
Ooh.
and let's go ahead and get this going. So, just let me
And
know
to kind of
when you.
get the setup here, they're shutting down my son's school. I have a wonderful 4 year old. He loves his school. And so they're shutting that, or it's slated to shut down. They vote on it in November, which is one reason we're focusing in on this right now to kind of get more awareness, activate people to go protest, speak up, vote to save our schools. So take it away. I'll mute right there,
Okay.
I
All
believe.
of us by surprise, pretty much, because all this just came out. You know, the 3 years that the STAR test was withheld up in a lawsuit, then it all comes out, and here we are. This is just absurd.
Patrick, the district says, you know, they want to cut costs, they want to be able to save money, you know, and this could be part of that for those operational costs. You know, do you think that this is a good way to go about, you know, trying to save money closing schools?
No way, no way. And that's the thing. This is the bigger picture. Instead of saving money, they should have invested the money. They should have put more money into the schools to give the support, to give the tutoring, to help bring the staff with the support that they need. Instead of trying to save money, why not try to reform recapture? Instead of giving away $700 million of our taxpayer money that should be going to our schools, they give that to other districts across the state. So trying to save 25 million when we're giving away 700 million, that doesn't add up.
Patrick, lastly, before I let you go, you know, what's next for you and your family? Of course, your kid, I think you told me he's in kindergarten or pre-K, so he's got a long way to go in elementary school. What's next for your family?
So this is going to disrupt a lot of things, but you know, here in Dove Springs, we are Dove Springs proud, and we adapt to change. We are going to rebound from this. There are two other campuses that this school would move students to. I believe it was Houston and Rodriguez elementary schools that they could be moved to, but that's going to disrupt so much for the staff, for the community, for the parents who walk their kids to school, including us. So it is going to cause a lot of mental health harm to the kiddos. And to do what? To put them into other campuses that are just at the same level? It makes no sense.
Patrick, thank you so much for your time. Well, you hear it there. These parents, you know, there's a lot of frustration and a lot of confusion going on, but we'll see how this process plays out. Again, the board could vote one way or the other here coming up in November. For now, reporting live outside of Wadena Elementary, Jamal Kennedy, CBS Austin News.
Now your storm clear watch.
Wow.
Get that thumbs up.
Thumbs up.
Mentos fresh.
That's amazing. So thank you. Thank you for being the voice. And I want to mention this and so people aren't fully aware that we're actually having a side conversation and the importance of this because a lot of people in the community don't speak English, you know, or they English is their second language. It's not their first. So there's a lot of confusion there. And so by you stepping in, you are being the voice for these people. And I know that there are others out there. Um, what words can you tell those that are currently now that are in your community right now? Uh, and they are bilingual and they're fluent in both languages. Why is it so important for them to step forward and kind of take the lead? Because I know one person, you, Patrick, I know you're amazing. You are truly amazing, but you can't carry all that weight on your, by yourself.
That's the thing is like I want to be in the ring fighting, but I'm like, oh, I'm spread thin with other projects and stuff. But this is so important, and especially for those who are bilingual, those who have family members in schools that only speak Spanish, that is a major concern because a lot of people in the Hispanic community don't even know what's happening. They don't know that this is happening because it's not given to them in a way that they understand. It's just like, oh, there's some issues, but there's not a lot of media attention. And sadly, they did ask me to do an interview on Telemundo right afterwards, which I did, but my Spanglish, soy pocho, yo hablo con un
Mm.
acento americano, and trying to share that, I can't get into the depth and the importance of this to speak to the Mexican families, Puerto Rican families, the Hispanic families here in our area. And so for those of you who do have the skill, the cultural capital, to speak into the lives of others in Spanish, to let your neighbors, your family know that this is happening, that's what's needed because we need as much support as we can. And that's the thing too. And again, going down the little rabbit hole, what happened with the STAR test was that I think they started the third grade, and then third grade through fifth grade, they do offer the STAR test in Spanish. And so once they get to sixth grade, it's only in English. And a lot of these kids are raised in puro Mexicano families where Spanish is their first language. So when they get to sixth grade and it's only in English, boom, it affects them. They're not able to fully understand the things because they don't have that translation to help out. So that has been one thing that has been made apparent that there is a lot of I guess, yeah, inequity. There's a lot of inequality that this test is set up, and we haven't even talked about the millions of dollars that the Pearson company profits from doing these tests. And so it's that whole thing. You follow the money, follow the money. Who does it benefit? Who is it pushing down? And kind of going to like a 15,000-foot view. And this is specific to Austin, but for the whole state, for areas, it is what it is. It's sad, but in the late 1920s, Austin had what was called the city plan, where white affluent leaders couldn't segregate so much the black and brown communities. But what they could do, they couldn't say you can't come here, but what they could do is they could move all the black and brown schools to one side, all the black and brown barbershops. They could say you can only set up here. And so everybody would follow. And that's exactly what happened. That East side, East Austin was predominantly the Mexican, black, low income. The West side, the nicer side, was the affluent white folks. I-35 came in and literally built the divide right in the middle. And even though, segregation is gone, civil rights, it's still like that, except now all the black and brown families are getting priced out, getting gentrified. So it's pushing them out even further. I believe the black population in Austin has shrank like the most out of all demographics. It has shrunk. And it's because we don't have the voices, we don't have the power in those leadership positions. We have wonderful representatives here, but for all the other communities, especially, and I hate saying the West Side, but it's those in power keep the power because they know how to navigate. The uneducated, low income, they're trying to survive. They don't have the voice, and that's why we do need people in the community. If you're in the community, you speak Spanish, stand up, speak up, share this. What I can do, let's think of what we can do. I'm going to start creating flyers in Canva and just translate that into Spanish and start blasting that out on our social media feed to let people know, to let families know, because it is a very different demographic that's getting affected versus the demographics that could benefit from this. And even to drive this home, this is the interesting part. So my wife, Rachel, white girl, she was born up in the Panhandle, Amarillo area. She is now in this community of Dove Springs, South Austin, real close to downtown, but it's mostly black and brown families. And so she's starting to see firsthand the inequities that happen. And it's weird because it's right outside of our gates. We live in a very affluent little gated community. And so you have people driving out in their Teslas and Beamers. And then you've got people who don't even have vehicles. And so it's a very eye-opening experience. And she is just like, wow, I'm actually seeing this. I'm experiencing this now that, our son's school is getting closed. And I told her right when this happened, I told her, and I bet a lot of the schools they're closing are going to be on the east side. And sure enough, once they release the list, boom, 10 out of the 13 schools, east side. And so it just goes back to the inequities. It goes back to the systemic racism that, is trying to get whitewashed away. This doesn't exist. It doesn't exist because of people who say it exists are getting scrubbed out.
Yeah, I think, yeah, and you touched on some really wonderful key points, and I think that it's time for people, people of color that do have that education, that background, that are bilingual, to step forward and kind of say, because if you wonder and say, what can I do? What are the changes that I can do? How I can contribute? I think that's a good starting point. And for those that are, because I know we're going to have people out there that are just going to be on the negative side and say, well, you should learn English and all that. And they should be, this is America and English is the English language and all that. And um, I think that people kind of forget that a lot of the times it's really difficult to be able to learn a second language when you are struggling in trying to make and feed your family. If only certain opportunities where the doors open for you, you only amongst your own people that only speak Spanish, so you're not really forced to learn the language. I mean, there are things that are happening, circumstances that are in people's lives, that happen. So I just kind of wanted to bring that to light. And the other aspect is, I think every child deserves an opportunity
Mhm.
to feel safe, to have the education, that they need and all that. And if that doesn't pull your heartstrings and saying, the importance and all that, this is how we're able to, generations are able to move forward, grow, get an education and all that, and move forward. And it sounds like right now, there's a lot of things that are happening that are not right. And I'm glad that you're bringing this to light. But we are going to have future guests. I know, Patrick, you're going to be the one. We're going to have some people come over, and I want to just touch on now because November's coming up, and it's important. Why? Because elections are coming up,
Mhm.
and so um, can you tell our listeners out there why it's important to go ahead and elect the right officials and to kind of do like the research and all that on
Yes.
the.
And I think that's the key part is do the research. We live in a world of sound bites. We live in a world where a lot of people in power are trying to shape the narrative by which we see social media. And a lot of the information is bunk, it's false. But they know that people are not going to critically think about this. They know people are not going to go research it because they want to go research chemtrails or something in the sky instead of where is my money going? Where does my money go? And I'm going to throw this out here too. This isn't just a black and brown thing. Rural communities, Bastrop,
Yes.
Texas, Smithville, Texas, Elgin, the smaller towns outside of these big cities are also affected. Think of the school vouchers. That money, $10,000 to a family to go to a private school. What private school? I think they say, I think it was Tellerico that said there's 187 districts in Texas that are nowhere near a private school. So even though those funds are going to get pulled out to go to the affluent, to go to those who can afford those private schools, where do their kids go when that school shuts down because they have no funding? So this affects everybody. And the only way to shape our future is to vote, to get out there and educate yourselves, to look past the sound bites, to look past the little narratives that we're fed through social media saying, well, this is a good thing. We're going to give school choice. We're going to help out. It's going to give everybody an opportunity. Follow the money. Follow the money. And so November is elections, and this has been a big thing. There's it's the power that those in power want to keep the power. I'll throw this out there too, because if you're a teacher, if you know a teacher, think about this. For the most part, they're not going to get Social Security because they pay into the Texas retirement system, which is a different type of pension. So they're most likely not going to get Social Security. Why? Again, follow the money. Who does it benefit? And so the only power that we have is to get out there and vote, to get out there and let your voice be known, get out there and do something that's going to make an impact, if not for you, for your neighbor. If you're a
Exactly.
homeowner, it definitely affects you because I know here in Austin, our property taxes are about to go up yet again, even though we're giving away all that money. So look up your elections, find out what people are standing for, and I'll probably get some flack for this, but don't get stuck behind like I know a lot of people get stuck behind, they get caught up in like one thing, like one thing. And instead of looking at the whole picture, like, well, and I'm just going to call it, a lot of my friends, well, we stand behind this candidate because they don't support abortion. It's like, okay, but what about all the kids who are not going to get school lunches now because their school is closing? What about all the kids who the only support system they have for special needs is their school? Don't forget about that. That we were called as Christians to watch out for the widows and the orphans.
Right.
How are these programs helping that community? So it's,
I'm glad that, yeah,
yeah.
I'm sorry, go ahead. No,
Oh no, that's it. Just go vote, people. Vote.
go vote. And I'm glad that you touched on that because that is something that I think that um many people get stuck on one centralized idea. And I know that for some people, especially we're in areas that religion, is a big major part in a person's life, but we also have to look at the factors of other things, challenge our politicians, because I guarantee you, we vote them out. I mean, because they're just taking the money and they're running with it. But if we vote them out and we hold them accountable and you start letting them know these are the important issues in our schools, ensuring that our children get their education, ensuring that people's property taxes aren't increasing, and we put that and we hold them accountable and we vote them out, they're going to be like, okay, I'm going to be careful. I'm going to be careful in my policies and laws and all, because I'm not going to be, having that check and coming in.
Mhm,
But I'm glad that you did say that and you touched that. And I know I'll get flack on that too, because a woman of faith and when we have our faith, there's certain things that people say, you got to stand by this, but then you got to look at the children that are here now,
mhm.
that are, and
And it's hard, and I get it. Like
hard.
nobody wants. No, I'm not. Nobody's out there promoting. We want to kill babies. It's just
Yes.
it's how do we navigate where we are? And I would even say to our listeners, dig into the research and the history behind that one issue thing, because even that goes back to church roots, people in power trying to get the power because they found out that this is one thing all the rural community type folks can get behind. And
Yeah.
so you do the more research and you find this stuff out. It's like we're trying to pull the curtain back on the Wizard of Oz and understand why things are the way they are, who's in power, who's writing the narrative, and who's suffering. And it's pretty apparent. It's pretty apparent.
Exactly. And I think one final word that I'm just going to say to people is that we need to challenge our elected officials, because what's happening right now is not working. It's
Hmm.
broken
Hmm.
and we're seeing it. So we need to challenge it. And then for those that want to run into office and really want to make a difference and be a servant leader, because let's remember, people in office are supposed to be servant leaders. They are to
Hmm.
serve the community. They work for us. We are paying, our taxpayers are paying, and they're not doing that. And people are forgetting that. They are here to serve the community.
Hmm.
But what they're doing is they're serving the corporations, they're serving who can get richer, who can profit from this, and like you said, follow the money. And as we begin to dig deeper and deeper, we're not going to like those answers. But we still can regain that before we start losing control. I mean, we have to um be able to empower those that we choose to serve our communities. That's
Hmm.
what we need to do.
And I'm going to leave
Okay.
one more little factoid here because everything you're saying is exactly it. It's exactly what's needed. And just to every listener out there, think about this. Who's the richest person in Texas? Who's the richest person in the world? Elon Musk, Texas. He's based here. He and his kiddos qualify for the vouchers. So
Got a whole bunch of them.
the richest man in the world is going to benefit off of your property taxes, benefit off of your money, because that's the system that exists right now. Think about that. Who's it benefiting? Follow the money. America.
I know. It would be interesting if if you earned a certain income level, you don't qualify for that voucher. Why can't they do that?
You would figure. You would figure. I
Yeah.
don't know
I
why.
mean, like, yeah, and that way you can increase the value of the vouchers for family that can't afford it, and then it'll be covered completely.
Mm-hmm.
Why can't they do that? Well, the rich they don't want that. But anyway,
Yeah.
but thank you, Patrick. Any final words that you have for our listeners? Or, I mean, I know we're going to be having some upcoming guests that are really going to they're going to zoom in. Right now, we're covering like an aerial view, and I pretend not to be an expert. I am not an expert at all.
Neither am
We're,
I. Yeah. I'm just.
yeah. So we're just covering, we're starting to dig, and we're finding, oh my gosh, this is terrible. But we're gonna get some experts that are gonna come in and talk about this. But um any final words that you would like to say to our listeners?
I think the thing that those in power fear most are the educated. And that is one thing that we need to do more of, more critical thinking. For the listeners out there, it's always, well, not in my backyard. It doesn't affect me until it's like your house is on fire. Your neighbor's house is on fire, and it's just going to spread. It's not a black, brown versus white thing. It's a rich versus poor thing. And the way things are shaping out right now, it's benefiting a certain group at the expense of everyone else. So educate yourself, look past the snippets you see online, and we can do something about it. And it's sad to say that a lot of the protests are a little too late and too little. We can take the power and keep those in power accountable in November and let them know. So, si se puede, get out there, share your voice, stand up for your neighbor, love your neighbor as yourself. It's not that hard. Okay, there.
I love that. Thank you so much, and muchas gracias.
I always said.
And for our listeners, thank you for joining us today at Life and In Between. You can actually go ahead and subscribe if you haven't already to our channels. We're practically on all the platforms right now, so you can find us on YouTube, Spotify, Amazon Music. I mean, we're there. So you just find us, or we can simply go to our website. And maybe in the future, we're going to start maybe broadcasting in Spanish. What do you think?
I think that
A
would be
little
good.
bit?
Yeah, I think that would be good.
Yeah. We could
In
do like a mini
Spanglish.
podcast, like a Spanglish one. We can like hablar un poquitico español so that we can have some of our listeners kind of
Mhm.
jump in and that are, thought. But anyway,
Yeah.
thank you again. Thank you again. And thank you for being a part of a Life in Between. And have a great day, everyone.